What's next doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by chance. What's next happens when experience meets expertise, when data meets dollars, and when steel meets earth. What's next happens when the promising work of Pioneer state-of-the-art research centers meets the unsparing challenges of more than 17,000 on-farm trials. Our ultimate goal is to bring the next seed breakthrough to your fields, because Pioneer isn't just our name, it's our mission. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
This RealAg Radio podcast is brought to you by Economics. Everyone has questions about their farm. From general inquiries to in-depth fertilizer questions, find straightforward answers at nutrien-economics.com.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Thursday edition of the show. Hey, thanks so much for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. And, of course, also big shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. Continue to spread the word about the show. The more the merrier here, a part of the RealAg Radio and Real Agriculture community. Okay, Farmer Rapid Fire today. It is Thursday. Yes, and of course, always brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. For more than 90 years, Pioneer has developed and tested products to meet your local challenges. With new Optimum Glide canola, Enlist E3 soybeans, to performing corn products and industry-leading traits and technologies to maximize your yield potential. Pioneer's on-the-ground teams can help you get the right products for your field. That's the key part. For your fields, not your neighbor's fields or the person 10 miles down the road. Your fields. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more. And of course, coming up, we got Agritechnica in November. We got a team from Real Agriculture going over to Hanover, Germany to bring a whole bunch of content back for you in Canada and the US. And that coverage is brought to you by Optimum Glide and Pioneer Seeds of Corteva and the gang. So, it is going to be a lot of fun. Big shout out to Corteva and Pioneer Seeds Canada for being supporters of Real Agriculture and RealAg Radio. Okay, who is in the lineup today? We got Chris Moore. He's from Kinburn, Ontario. Of course, farms with partner Lindsay Smith from Real Agriculture is looking forward. They've had some farm tours this week, so looking forward to hearing about that. Andrea Stroeve-Sawa is out of Tabor, Alberta. We got Eric McLean out of Oak River, Manitoba. And we'll be joined today by Pioneer agronomist for Eastern Canada is Paul Hermans. Yes, love talking to Paul. So we're going to cover a lot of ground across the country here today and hearing how people are making on their fields, their pastures, their barns, and all that kind of stuff. If you have any feedback on today's show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find us across all the different social media platforms. Or as always, I encourage you to call the RealAg feedback line. The number is 855-776-6147. Yes, I know. The Blue Jays, tough loss. Tough. You know, Dan Schulman said it leading into the series. The Twins were not a good matchup. They may have had, way less wins than the Rays, but the Rays were stumbling into the playoffs. The Jays took 2 of 3 on one of the closing weekends, and here we sit. We're bounced. Actually, every one of the wild card series was a sweep, 2-0. So the Blue Jays not alone in that. Bats cold. Hitters or sort of runners in scoring position couldn't capitalize. Total lack of power. You look at some of the OPS numbers, not great and not fantastic all season, to be honest with you. And of course, everyone's going to focus on the pitching change. I've got some thoughts about that and how I think more is being made about that than maybe is really the reality. I think actually Vladdy getting picked off at second base was potentially more of an impact and actually more of a blunder and stupid move than anything that Schneider and the managerial staff did to pull Barrios in the 4th inning after he'd only given up 3 hits. And it was interesting. Joe Siddall said on the post game, or at least what I watched on Sportsnet last night, that clearly was the plan going into the game. Barrios was not surprised. it was kind of like, man, I'm pitching really good. Come on, we're still going to go through with this. Kikuchi would have known. We can get into the whole analytics of it. I think there's much more of an analytics overlay here, and the people with the calculators and the computers have much more of a decision-making power on decisions like this than maybe some fans think. But it's an interesting debate. I don't have time today to totally get into it, but yeah, Blue Jays going down in not even a burning heap of flames. It was sort of with the lack of power, it was kind of, we got to score runs. You have to score runs. And we just were not able to do that in any sort of regard, which is just really, really too bad indeed. Kelvin Hepner from our team, also a big baseball fan, he said, the Jays have the sixth most regular season wins in Major League Baseball over the last 4 seasons, playing in the AL East. Like that's significant. And the anger of the Toronto sports fan will always amaze me in how angry people get. Yeah, there's a lot of anger. And you know what? In some ways, I guess, rightly so. Okay, let's take a break. Let's get to the farmers and the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. And we're going to start in Taber, Alberta. When we come back, you're listening to RealAg Radio brought to you today by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Your co-op grow team are your local experts because we live here too. Our agronomic specialists stay up to date with the latest research and technology to help support your entire farm operation. Talk to our team for advice tailored to your farm's needs. We have recommendations to help you optimize your crop yield and quality while enhancing the health of your land. Co-op, we're all growing together. Here for your farm, here for your family. Learn more at coop.crs/farm.
CDC Endure is a new oat line from Alliance Seed. High yielding with excellent disease resistance and the quality end users ask for, all in one great oat variety. CDC Endure provides the high beta-glucan levels to make heart-healthy products like breakfast cereals. For more information on CDC Endure oats, as well as any other products from Alliance Seed, check out allianceseed.com or visit any Alliance Seed authorized retailers.
Protecting your nitrogen is smart. And a nitrogen granule with a polymer coating that releases in response to conditions that promote plant growth? Well, that's me. I'm the environmentally smart nitrogen granule that gives the nutrition crops need when they need it, reducing nitrogen loss and increasing nutrient availability. Imagine feeding me to your fields. Me. Now, wait a minute. Hey, can I rethink this? ESN Environmentally Smart Nitrogen Fertilizer. Learn more at smartnitrogen.com.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada to, corn capital of Canada, Taber, Alberta. Andrea Stroeve-Sawa joins us. Hey, Andrea, how's it going?
Hey, Shaun, good. How are you?
Good. And there may be some areas that challenge this corn capital tag, but how was the sweet corn this year in Taber?
Oh, so good. So good. It seemed like the season was early and then it kind of ended fast. We didn't get enough probably, but yeah, it was good.
And of course the highlight is Corn Fest in Taber.
Yes, Corn Fest. The big festival. So yeah, that was really fun. It was really fun.
I may be overselling it.
You may be overselling it a little, but it is actually a really good time. And they say that it's like the biggest free festival in southern Alberta or something. I'm going to get that wrong. Somebody's going to correct me on that. But yeah, it's a really good time. It's a family thing, and yeah, it's great.
How are things going in the feed yard?
Good. Busy. Lots of cattle. In and out and everywhere. So yeah. And got all our corn silage in. The most corn silage I've taken in 10 years, I think, in my 10 years of managing. This is the most corn silage I've ever had. So, yeah, it's good.
Yield's really good on that corn silage.
Yield was really good on the corn silage. It came off probably about 3 weeks earlier than we would have anticipated it coming off. Just it was hot and dry, and we had kind of a little bit of a water restriction, so that was really hard on my grower. And so he had to, kind of maneuver, changed some acres and moved some water from here and there and everywhere, but it ended up really good, and the yield was awesome. And yeah, the quality, nutritional quality, and the quality of the corn is great. So I'm looking at that really big silage pit and thinking, every year I do this, I look at it and I'm like, am I ever going to get through all this? And somehow we always do. We use it all. So, but this is the most by about probably 2,000 wet tons, more than what I normally would get in.
Oh,
so
wow.
We'll see. We'll see if I'm complaining in July that I don't have any feed left. We'll see.
Well,
but, yeah.
We know this. Feeder cattle are not cheap.
Feeder cattle are not cheap. Feeder cattle are not cheap.
Yeah.
And yeah, we sold our grass cattle right off of grass just because you can't argue it. It's like, wow, okay, well, we'll just sell them. Sometimes it's really nice. We kind of are in a position where we can pull them off grass, and because I have a feedlot, we can put them in and feed them for a bit and then sell them, or we can choose to fatten them. And you kind of look at all the options, and this time it just sell them right off grass. It just made so much sense. I actually wrote number in dollars per head on a piece of paper, and I handed it to my dad and said, well, that's what we made per head. And he said, never in 50 years, I have never seen that. And I said, yeah, well, you've never seen barley at 420 either. So
Yeah.
let's just take it as it comes.
Yeah. Well, and the old boy there got some memory. He's got some good memory. So that I could see him totally saying that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get constantly reminded about, the interest rates of the 80s. I get reminded that a lot, but I was listening to something somewhere. It might have even been on RealAg. I can't remember.
Oh, it probably was.
It probably was. I get really good information from RealAg. But I was listening. It was an economist, and he was talking about interest rates and how, in the 80s we had higher interest rates than we have right now. But we also have right now, things just cost more. Like everything just costs more. Labor costs more. Equipment costs more. So you have a higher amount of money that you need to have to operate. So yeah, our interest rates aren't quite as high as they were in the 80s, but we need a bigger amount of money to keep this place rolling. So it's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
So I kind of throw that in his face when he starts talking about the interest rates of the 80s. But yeah.
Earlier this week, we talked to Andrew Pritchard, meteorologist from Nutrien, and I was asking, about what can we expect for snowfall this winter, because you mentioned irrigation and water allocations. I'll tell you what, in southern Alberta, there is a lot of worry about if we don't get a good runoff, what the heck are we going to do next year for irrigation with corn silage, hybrid seed canola, potatoes, sugar beets, some of the special crops. We got a problem. Yeah.
And I don't, you start to kind of think, okay, well, usually our allotment is, 14 or 16 inches per acre. And so then you look at, okay, well, if they cut that in half, what if we're faced with 8 inches? What do we do then, right? Like what can we grow, and how do we work it so that we can actually get a crop off to feed animals and grow grass to graze cattle, and and if we go into 4 years of drought, like this is year 3 of drought, and this one was pretty hard. Like this growing season, from when the snow melted until now, until a week ago, we had only got 2.25 inches all season, and that's not enough to do much of anything for us, especially on the dry land, grassland. It just, you graze what you can and you leave behind enough, but yeah, it's a dire situation, and it's kind of scary looking forward. You realize how reliant our area is on irrigation.
Oh,
because we definitely are.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You weren't growing that corn silage crop you had this year if you're just relying on Mother Nature coming through from an irrigation or from a water standpoint. Yeah.
No, and even like if you look at it from a bigger worldly perspective, like growing food for the world on 8 inches of irrigation water is not gonna cut it, right? So it's even food security wise, it's a little bit scary. It's a little bit scary. We need some rain, and we need to secure all the irrigation water that we can, and
and I think it's
manage it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out, you're talking about the quality of the grass and those kinds of things. You're doing a lot of advanced grazing, right? You're not necessarily an aggressive grazer. I think I'm putting those terms all properly. Like you're doing some of the advanced grazing stuff, and you're still feeling challenged when it comes to some of trying to maintain all this.
Yeah, and I mean, like you kind of plan for drought for the first year, and you kind of have a drought reserve the second year, but this year we kind of went in and said, well, we're gonna take sometimes we leave behind, right, quite a bit. This year, we went in and just said, we need to take enough and leave behind 30 to 50%. But I mean, it's I don't think it's ever looked like this. Like we're pretty reliant. It needs a break from the drought. Like it needs a break from the drought for sure. And even things like we filled our ponds up right before they shut the water off, but they shut the water off 3 weeks early. So now I have to make it all the way to May with the water that I have in my ponds with a full feedlot with 3 weeks less water, basically. Ooh. Yeah, it's a scary thing. So we flooded as much as we could, we have flood irrigation kind of around where our ponds are. So we flood irrigated as much as we could. And it's like a sponge, right? You kind of, you soak the sponge and then you hope that you did enough. Cause I mean, September 22nd, the water went off and that's that, right? So it's a scary thing. We filled all the ponds on our entire, on our 2 quarters where the feedlot actually is. And if we have to, we can pump and, we can get water from other places, but not enough to get us through by any stretch of the imagination.
Andrea, just to wrap up here, are you feeding barley or corn this winter?
I am feeding barley. I did a little experiment with feeding some oats, and I think I'm going to abandon that ship. But yeah, once I'm kind of in a situation where I can't feed barley and corn. And so I kind of let the big guys all switch to corn, and then I try to scrape up some barley here, there, and wherever I can. But I'm mostly backgrounding, so most of my feed sources comes from my silage. Yeah. So I can get enough barley bought up, and then I have my big pile of silage, and hope that gets us through till July. August or September. Yeah.
or. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, Andrea, really appreciate you joining us here this week on the Farm Rapid Fire. All the best to you. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Shaun. Yeah.
This water situation in the irrigation district in southern Alberta, it's a big thing. This is no small issue. You think about the hybrid canola, potatoes, sugar beets, other crops. This area, because of irrigation water, is producing very, very high value crops. And all of that is based on the fact there's irrigation. So as we heard yesterday from Andrew Pritchard from Nutrien, there is immense pressure right now on Mother Nature to fix this situation. And like I discussed with Andrew, the problem is it's not about just getting 2-3 inches here through the fall. That doesn't solve the problem. We need a substantial reversal in what we've been seeing from a weather pattern standpoint. And for a lot of these dugouts and reservoirs in this area where Andrea lives in southern Alberta, the shift to La Nina, it needs to, not just the shift, but the actual impact needs to come through. And that runoff in the mountains is going to be something that there's watching how much snow you have in your field or how much rain you got on your fields and what the moisture reserve is. There's also watching that snowpack in the mountains, because that's where that runoff comes from. That feeds the irrigation system. So that is watching that weather in the BC Rocky Mountains, honestly, is just as important, and it's going to be a lot of focus for a lot of farmers in that area. So Andrea described the issue and the concern very, very well. Considering, obviously, we heard this on the Farmer Rapid Fire last week, I believe it was, we talked to Nikki Rasmussen. The corn silage crop in southern Alberta is outstanding. It is something to be seen for sure. Those silage pits are full. And people looking to definitely feed some weight on with the cattle industry here through the winter months indeed. Okay, let's take a break. We've got more of the Farmer Rapid Fire coming up right after this. You're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you today by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
what's next for your fields. At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground, we are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
You know, there's a reason we call it the Corn School. Videos on everything from planter setup, weed control, field trial results, yield strategies, and so much more. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF, Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from RealAgriculture.com, or as a podcast from your favorite streaming service. Download the latest podcast today.
As a grower, you spend a lot of time focused on the details. And sometimes it's only after harvest that you can step back and see the bigger picture. At AGI, we spend a lot of time focused on details too, making sure you can store your grain how you need to and move it when you need to. Learn more at aggrowth.com.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, to Oak River, Manitoba. And we're talking to Eric McLean. Hey, Eric, how's it going?
Not too bad, Shaun. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing good. So how's harvest progressing there in Oak River?
We're doing pretty good, and most generally the area is as well. There was a lot of guys that seen some wrap up and others that are straggling behind due to various events. Like we ourselves had hail damage back in June and July, and that affected most of our farm in some way or the other. But for the most part, with the great conditions that we had for heat and growing conditions anyways, everything's kind of come along, and now we're just wrapping things up hopefully here this next week with a few fields that we got left to do anyway. So
how have the yields been?
It's interesting. We've had lots of hit and miss activity. A few miles, about 20 minutes or half an hour to the west of us is Saskatchewan. Drought conditions, big time decreased yields. Our own personal experience here was that we were fortunately blessed with some moisture. Although some of it did have some hail in it, we were able to get what we consider to be adequate rainfall, not crazy amounts, but decent enough to get there. And the crops rooted well. And we personally pulled off some of our best cereal crops we've had on unaffected acres. Obviously, hail damaged acres are a different case. And similarly enough, our canola is doing the same thing, being a very good crop. And when we look at our soybeans, we're a little bit disappointed, but based on the fact that we had, a lot of heat and less rainfall in some time frames, we're not too upset. We're probably somewhere around 70 to 80% of normal, but generally still pretty happy with the fact that we got something compared to others anyway. So
yeah, kind of sounds like a live to fight another day kind of year. Is that?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even in that regard, like I say, when you have hail, you have to think, it's a personal reflection upon the area that got affected. But, for what we're getting out of these things, I mean, we're still doing quite well. And our risk management tools are working and all the other stuff that we have to rely on when those things happen. So otherwise, not so much lived another day. Still a pretty decently successful year as far as I can see.
Yeah.
But like I say, got a feel for the guys who are drought affected or had too much of something that affected their production year. So
do you put a bunch of extra hail insurance on typically in a year?
It's always been a debate. My father-in-law, who used to farm with us here, that was kind of his baby. And of course, experience dictates where you feel comfortable with putting your hail insurance on and how much risk management you put into your farm. And so that was a struggle after he passed away to be able to figure out the right level. And so what we've always done is just kind of looked at, where our basket of goods lies, what our gross revenue potential should be on a given year, and just trying to make sure that between, a crop insurance event and, Manitoba, masked crop insurance from Manitoba Ag Service Corporation, crop insurance, basic hail, and what we have for private can top us up into a good range where we're covered off. And so that's where we look at. So I do tend to take on a little bit extra private hail insurance, just make sure I'm shored up. and that's served us well. A lot of years you don't use it. This year we're going to cash in quite a bit of it, and that's obviously going to help us out, and it's going to make sure that we have enough money to pay for the premiums going forward too. So,
for like looking ahead here to 2024, which crazy to think about because we haven't finished 23 yet, but we got to do that. Have you made any moves on fertilizer, diesel, fuel, anything like that, getting ready for next year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, we did, we try to make sure that we stay above the trends that are out there. Looking at fertilizer and the opportunities that have been out there being very bleak. We did pre-book on hydrous ammonia. We try to put down about 25% or 25 to 50% of our acre usage every year in fall band. And so we pre-booked our anhydrous ammonia. Pretty disappointed in the cosmic timing of fertilizer manufacturers to have significant shutdowns and logistical constraints going into the fall season. Hard not to think that it looks a little bit like the market manipulation in some ways. Generally speaking, I know that they're going to hide behind the fact that these are just shutdowns that needed to happen, but could they have happened at a different time frame or how it works out? I'm thinking they maybe could have. So we're kind of frustrated when there was a huge spread between anhydrous ammonia and dry and liquid product based quotes out there, and significant, like 50% more for dry product than what it was for anhydrous, things like that. So not really impressed with it, but we've got some product booked. We're actually got the unit hooked up, hoping to get going sooner than later here. We've actually had some rainfall this past few days and got some decent soil moisture levels going now that hopefully the applicator will be able to go into the ground and be able to do the job that we're hoping. And as we try to finish harvest and try to start fertilizer, and the seed plant's starting up to start cleaning fall processing of soybeans. So we're keeping everybody busy, that's for sure.
Yeah. And you typically get right to those soybeans just because of the, make sure they don't dry out and make that handling a little bit easier. Is that why you're doing that?
Well, that's true. And some of it is just as much of anything is that, we process for the major soybean companies that are out there, and we like to make sure we get the product in place clean so that they can be put in place for the retailers to have it in their store for early pre-buy season and make sure that they have the quality and the parameters to know what they got to sell as well. So Q4 becomes a fairly important time frame to be able to get those batches and lots processed for those guys. And then that way it frees us up as we get into the cold part of winter to be able to do our old core of our business where we clean up our cereals and then pulse crops and things like that for our local supply as well too. So
yeah, you and I have chatted before about the joys of the middle of the Manitoba winter and working in the seed plant.
That's right. It's steady work and it keeps everybody busy, but obviously there's a nicer time to be doing things. But so far so good. Everything's been put together well enough that we keep being able to make it happen anyway. So,
have you always done fall application of fertilizer? Is that always been the program?
It was the majority of the program for many, many years, and we came away from it back probably about 5-6 years ago, where we started doing more with direct seeding of our canola. As technology and seeding equipment progressed, and we finally got ourselves into a drill that had banding shank capacity with separate seed placement, we started to look at that as an option, and we really fell in love with a kind of a multi-use system where we do fall banding on acres that are intended for cereals. They're coming out of soybean acres, so we do that, and then our cereal acres from this year become our canola acres next year, and we like to zero till right into that ground, and canola usually likes to thrive in that environment. So that's where we've cornered around making sure that we're putting down everything the canola needs in one pass. So we do that, and then following canola, usually we put down soybeans in that crop. So those ones end up being just kind of more of a free pass year where we're just putting down starter fertilizer instead. So
yeah, sometimes I think about we think about how many passes we do in any given growing season, and it can be different depending on the crop you're growing. But you think about the passes that we do now versus the passes they did, say, in the 1950s. And we're making more sprayer passes, of course, but we're not dragging shanks through the ground. It's a big difference.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I always think about how much iron is left in the soil from dragging those points, and the soil abrasion itself and what it does to the tillage equipment, and versus what we do now with minimum zero tillage. And you're right, there's more spare passes that happen in there, and then that, I think, in itself is a testament to the advancements of the technological advancements that we enjoy with agriculture when it comes to genetics, when it comes to seed products and how they improve, how agronomics has improved, and all the different things that we use, and also the seed and the agricultural technology and the machinery. Like, everything is advanced. Like, even in the drought year that we're talking about this year, lots of anecdotal comments about how, oh crap, I had a drought. I got 40 to 50 bushel wheat this year. And that's a testament to itself, because only a short 20 years ago when I first got to know you, 40 to 50 bushels in the western prairies is a good crop. Now it's a drought crop in western Manitoba. And, these numbers can affect different areas. But speaking to that is a big increase. Over 20 years of advancement has now created a whole different paradigm on what's considered to be a disaster versus what's actually considered good. So, and all of this is tied in with those passes that we just mentioned, and being able to conserve that moisture and making sure the crop can use it. So,
great stuff. Hey, Eric, thanks so much for joining us here this week on the Farm Rapid Fire. Good luck to you finishing up this harvest and doing all that fall work you got to get done.
Good. Thanks, Shaun. Always a pleasure. Anytime.
Definitely a lot of variability across the prairie provinces, indeed, when it comes to some of the yields, but we continue to hear, not as bad as I thought. And hey, there are some very, very poor pockets. But it's great to get the feed. I love this time of the year when we actually see what the combine says, right? And it's fun and educational, informative to be able to compare the outcome versus what we thought, and also evaluate some of those decisions that we made throughout the growing season, no matter what geography or the conditions that we faced in the growing season. Okay, let's take a break. We've got more of the Farmer Rapid Fire coming up. You're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you today by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Dedication. Watching the sunset over your crop is one of life's simple pleasures. The anticipation of it all. We know that feeling. Introducing our new Airflex NXT, our best honeybee header yet with the closest cut ever. Light, fast reacting, and infinitely adjustable. More yield, less time and work. Airflex NXT focuses on the future. What drives your next? Visit honeybee.ca or contact your nearest honeybee dealer.
When it comes to your farm, you demand performance, because what goes in determines what comes out. At Pride Seeds, we deliver on performance. With best-in-class corn hybrid seed, you'll see results when it comes to premium yield in all the ways that matter. Moisture, nutrition, dollars per acre, and of course, tonnage. So discover your farm's advantage, the Pride Seeds advantage. Visit your local dealer or prideseeds.com today.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, to Kinburn, Ontario, just outside the nation's capital. And we're talking to Chris Moore. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Straight ahead, Mr. Haney. How are you?
Well, good. Better to be on top of the grass than under it. So, what's happened on the farm this week? I hear you got some visitors.
Yeah, it's been busy. We had Monday was Algonquin's Ag Diploma course came through as part of Ontario's Ag Week, and so that's young people, for the most part, going through for the Ag Diploma. So that was a lot of fun to have that come through. A lot of great questions. And being a solar site and grazing sheep on it, there's always been the criticism pretty well that, like, solar's farmland that's wasted and it's gone forever. But with these people, this site's pretty well always been a solar site since they can remember. Like, we have a bunch of local kids. And just a completely different mentality than what I'm used to around it. Especially coming from an ag background, that they still have that maybe this is an opportunity for them to own their farmland from their parents, kind of stuff, and generate income and still be farming.
Do you find you tend to get some pushback on the fact that there's a solar site and people misunderstanding kind of what the intention is and some of the productivity that comes off of that solar site from a grazing perspective, or what's the typical, I guess, criticism that comes your way?
We get everything. So we had another tour come through today. It was a culinary course. Also from Algonquin, organized by Kelly Daynard, who just does an amazing job at these things. And big fans of it. So people outside of ag, they think it's great, generating electricity, producing food, and habitat for all kinds of native species. And then there's the people that will tell me that nothing grows under the panels, which I'd be out of work. If that was true, I wouldn't have grass to cut under the panel with the sheep. So it's all kinds of different things. But it was kind of, sorry?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but with the shade of the panel, I would think that the grass would, like, I'm thinking about under my trampoline. Like as a kid, you move the trampoline, and the grass is way taller under the trampoline because of the shade. Is that what happens under the panels from your experience?
It'll be a little bit delayed in the spring, so the snow will hang out there a little bit longer. But our cool season grasses, orchard, and the fescue's not so bad, but orchard would kind of be the big one. It stays vegetative considerably longer into the season than it would if it was getting direct sunlight all day long.
That makes sense.
For sure. We're definitely, that break from the direct sun really shows up, I think, and it stays productive. And then the sheep always have a cooler spot to lie down, so they can keep eating a little bit better, I think.
What's the market like right now for sheep? Give us a bit of a lamb market update.
Oh, I was really hoping you were going to have that on your commodities last week when you were talking to the guy. I guess that part hasn't come out yet.
No, it's still in production. Our weekly sheep market update is it's still in process.
It's a standalone thing. Lamb, wool, that's right. Makes sense.
Yep.
Locally, we're getting still lots of demand. We're not going through the auction barns right now. They're pretty soft from my understanding. But we're doing a bunch of direct, and lots of enthusiasm for that and reasons for optimism.
Okay, that's good to hear. Because my impression was it was a little bit, like you said, more of the auction side of it, a little bit soft right now. Yeah, and I mean, when prices are favorable and we're putting our work into having that direct market, we're not getting ahead by very much. It might almost be costing us to be doing direct sales, but now that price has softened at the auction barns to have that direct sale, it's a huge advantage. Any prediction on how long you'll be able to keep those animals out on those solar grazing sites before you got to bring them home?
We've already brought home ram lambs to graze alfalfa regrowth at home, and we loaded one group of custom grazed ewes out on Tuesday. So they were used are from a barn system. We grazed them for the summer and for another farmer, and then they took them home, and they'll lamb here in a couple months, I guess, now.
Okay. One of the things we asked this week, Chris, is on our RealAgriculture.com poll that people could participate in by going to RealAgriculture.com is asking people about how they conserve fuel on the farm, or maybe possibly don't even worry about it because, you got to burn diesel to make the farm go round. Do you pay attention to conserving fuel, and if so, how do you do it?
Well, I'd say the grazing has been a huge part of how we conserve fuel. Having those sheep go out, cut, and harvest the feed themselves, it saves us a lot of, cut, rake, bale, haul, store, deliver. That's a lot of fuel. It's a lot of time having these sheep do that all themselves and get that manure back out there without having to, clean out, bed, compost, spread. It's huge.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, I actually never thought of it that way.
I mean, there's certain times of the year it's not practical, and there's this year we'll not be pushing grazing into the fall as late, just because we're short of labor, and the way that feed prices are, like the hay market here is really soft. So we'll start probably feeding hay earlier than normal, or at least what has become normal, just because of the labor savings and the feed cost.
My understanding is it's been pretty warm in your parts here this past week, and I guess what's your thoughts on moisture conditions here heading into fall? Could you use a bunch of fall rain, or what are you cheering for?
It has been dry the last month. We probably came out of our wettest summer that I can remember. There's still some flow to the creeks and stuff. They never went dry this year. So I don't want as much snow as we got rain over the summer. So if we keep the trend, I'm okay.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, hey, Chris, thanks so much for joining us here this week, and really, really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you in a few months, okay, bud?
All right, thanks for the warning.
I think there's a lot of benefits to doing what Chris and Lindsay have done with having tours from Algonquin College come to the farm, see what their production system looks like. Like, I think I encourage many of you to do these kinds of things. You know, I know some people have farm days in some of the provinces where, you know, kind of an open house to your farm, and people can come in and walk around, take a look, and really have that belly to belly experience with the industry of agriculture. And also too, is doing what Chris and Lindsay are doing there with Algonquin College. Everybody has a local ag program, reasonably distanced potentially from your operation. You know, reach out to them and see. Are you intending to do any field trips with some of your students? And it could be ag students, but it also could be maybe somebody in the geography program, for example. Like that has a big connection to the industry. Maybe it's some of the biology. There's lots of different opportunities to bring people out to your operation and show and tell, so to speak, showcase some of the things you do, and most importantly, why. And that's connecting the dots not only for the students, but the general public at large. So congratulations to Chris and Lindsay. As we just heard, they're doing that, and any of you out there that are doing it. And if you have an experience to share, of course, you can always send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. The other thing about it too, for a tour, it's a good reason. You got to cut the grass and get the yard looking good, right? Yeah, everybody's done that too. Oh, we got a tour coming through. Mow the grass, cut the hedges, and sweep that shop floor. We got to get this place looking in tip top shape. We've all been sort of like with your house, with company coming, right? Everybody, we all know that. Okay, let's take a break. We've got more coming up here on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
What's next for your fields? At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground, we are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
At Brett Young, we focus on what's real. It's how we became Canada's largest independent seed company. That's why we're asking a real farmer, what do you think of BY6217TF, Brett Young's TrueFlex Canola Hybrid?
What's that?
BY6217TF, Brett Young's TrueFlex Canola Hybrid with Pod Defender shatter reduction technology and Defender-rated club root and blackleg resistance.
Good yield, yeah. Probably choose it again.
Thanks, Chris. Talk to your Brett Young retailer today to see for yourself. Brett Young, distinct by design.
And we finish up this week's Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, by talking to an agronomist from Pioneer. And we're joined right now by Paul Hermans. He is a Pioneer agronomist in Eastern Ontario. Paul, great to have you back.
Great to be here, Shaun, as always. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're deep into the soybean harvest, and Wheat Pete and I were talking about this on Monday, but I continue to hear it from members of the audience. The soybean yields are fairly decent.
Yeah, in our area, Eastern Ontario here, they're overall fantastic, would say, Shaun. And I'd say 80% of the crop is above average.
I got a lot of customers tell me they're in that 60 up to 80 bushels, and great. But then we do have some percent with the white combine, white mold that came in, and again running 25 to 40 kind of area. So sad to see that, but that's just a factor of the weather environment that we had this year.
Yeah, for sure. White mold's definitely played a part. Some growers, provided me feedback that, even where they sprayed a fungicide, they still saw some white mold. But, in some of those test strips, they can, where they didn't use the fungicide, they've really seen an impact from that white mold.
Yeah, and it's we're doing here. I got some fungicide one pass versus none, and taking a few off this week, and seeing around a 5-6 bushel advantage for one pass. But I just did a 2 pass versus nothing today here, and it was up to 15 bushels more.
Oh, wow.
So definitely did pay to have fungicide on this year, to help with that white mold control.
Yeah. What do you expect out of this year's corn crop? There seems to be some, how I would describe it, like tight-lipped, strong optimism. Like people don't want to jinx it, but there's some yield out in that field.
Oh, definitely don't want to jinx it. And it's, we're into October. We can breathe a sigh of relief. We don't have to worry about frost. 99% of the crop has reached maturity. And just with preliminary counts, I think we're going to have a fantastic corn crop. The one thing, Shaun, that's hard to really tell is how much kernel weight's going to be on there. That's, 15, 20% of the yield comes from that final 30 days packing that kernel weight on. That'll be told with the combine. But overall, yeah, I think we're going to have a fantastic crop. We did a couple of weeks ago with our sales rep team, looking at our plots, doing kernel counts and rolls around, yield estimates, and we were pleasantly surprised, which is going to be a good thing.
Paul, if I think about 2021, 2022, and this year, boy, 3 years, we have pushed the envelope on yield on corn and beans in the province of Ontario. What is something changed in practice, or is it just the fact that, boy, Mother Nature really came through, and we are doing a good job out there in the field agronomically, but Mother Nature really came through?
Mother Nature controls a lot of things, right, Shaun? And she's probably the biggest player. But I think at the end of the day, seed genetics have changed a lot in the 25 years I've been working. But then also management, and I think growers, especially looking at white mold, have a lot more tools that they've had that can manage that. And same thing with the corn crop. So it's a combination of all. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's those timely rains in July for the corn and timely rains in August for beans that really help put on that extra yield at the end of the day.
In some ways, this popped into my head. It's sort of like an F1 car. Like I've heard that 70% of the performance is based on the technology of the car, okay, and all the features and the characteristics, and the remaining 30% is the driver. And I don't know if that's the true breakdown of how it works out from a cropping standpoint, but it's kind of like a similar situation. Is that you take what Mother Nature gives you, and it's, the farmer has an impact as well on similar to a race car driver, on how they attack the corner or how they find the apex of the corner and the acceleration, the braking and all that kind of stuff. It's the same with, planting speed and depth and emergence and all of those kinds. The farmer does play a role in it too.
Oh, definitely. It's fine tuning all those little things, those little bits of detail, and getting it right from the get-go. And again, looking at the white mold situation, we've got a lot of different tools, and some people use them and some don't, and rightly so. But the people that really help to manage it, they're the ones that are going to be a lot happier at the end of the day. So, yeah, Mother Nature's at 70% like the car, but it comes down to the driver and how you control it at the end of the day. Good analogy, Shaun. I'm a Formula One fanatic myself, so I love that one.
Oh, nice. That's good, Paul. I wish there was a little bit more competition. I like Red Bull, but I wish they weren't as far ahead as they are. It's nice to kind of have a better sort of I wonder who's going to win this weekend. Right now, it's just sort of Max Verstappen or nobody.
Well, I'm Dutch background, Shaun, so I'm a Max guy all in and out, right, the whole way.
Yeah, nice. I like that. Paul, as you reflect on the season, what's your big agronomic takeaway? Do you have one in terms of, as you talk to your colleagues at Pioneer, you talk to customers, you talk to some dealers, is there something to take out of this year to apply to future years we need to put in our memory banks?
I think it's all, honestly, Shaun, it comes field to field in situations, and we got so much to learn. And I know we're all out there harvesting, and you can still learn lots as we're taking the crop off. You know, if the monitor dips, what's going on? Take 5 seconds, shut the engine off, take a look at that crop there, continue on. And it's all about planning for next year and taking those little bits of information through the whole growing season. How do I take that to help me be better, in 2024 and beyond? And that's what I'm focusing on at this time of year with our customers. A lot of planning to make sure that we do a better job next year and going forward.
Great stuff. Well, Paul, really appreciate you joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire, and thanks so much for Pioneer being the show sponsor here every week as we talk to farmers across the country and find out how they're making out in their fields, and it's great to have you on board and a part of it. Thanks so much for the discussion today.
Thanks. It's been great.
I really like my example there of the F1, the impact of the F1 car and how it's set up versus the contribution of the driver. That's kind of a fun little analogy. I like that. Paul and I had some fun with that one. I think sometimes we potentially sort of explain ourselves by, well, you know what, whatever. It doesn't matter what I do. I'm subjected to whatever Mother Nature delivers. And to a certain extent, yeah, like if you're a really, really good driver and you're in a really, really crappy car, maybe you're just hoping to break the top 10, right? But if you have a really good car and a crappy driver, you may still be looking for that outcome. So to put that in agricultural context, if Mother Nature delivers a very good season, we need to make sure that we're up to the challenge and doing the appropriate things to maximize the variables that we're able to deal with, and take advantage and influence the outcome as much as possible. So that's why I kind of push back sometimes where it's like, well, it doesn't matter what I do. If Mother Nature doesn't cooperate, we're doomed. That's kind of a little bit more of a, I don't know, it's a victim mentality, but it's a little bit more of a, you're sort of just throwing up the white flag. And we've seen this year, Mother Nature dealt a pretty tough hand to people in certain parts. Parts of Quebec, way too much moisture. Parts of the Western Canadian prairies, nowhere near enough. And from a Western Canadian prairie standpoint, I think people did as much as they could with what they had to work with, right? Mother Nature did not deliver a very good car, and farmers show that they're pretty good drivers. And we got some yields that, are above what people kind of thought would happen. So where we thought we would maybe be that 15th place car, we're actually maybe in the 8th spot and getting some points, to use the F1 race analogy there. So I think that's it's kind of an important. Once again, we're reminded of all that. So, but I wish Mother Nature would cooperate a little more easily. We'd have to fight and scrape and claw for as much as we do in this industry, indeed. Okay, this has been a fun Farmer Rapid Fire here today. So really appreciate Andrea, Eric, Chris, as well as Paul Hermans for joining us here today. Do appreciate it. And as always, a big shout out and thank you to Pioneer Seeds Canada for being the sponsor of the Farmer Rapid Fire. Make sure you go to pioneer.com/Canada to find out more. And for all our American listeners, just go to pioneer.com. You can go to the Canadian site if you want to, but you can just check out pioneer.com. If you have any feedback on today's show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Of course, we're across all different social media platforms, or you can call that RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Make sure you check out tomorrow's show. We got a big product launch from Corteva tomorrow on the show. As well, we're going to hear from Kelvin Hepner, Lindsay Smith, and also RealAg panelist Stuart Person from MNP will join us to talk about all the biggest issues of the week. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio, and we will chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for downloading this episode of the RealAg Radio podcast, brought to you by Economics. With one-of-a-kind tools, research, and content, Economics is farming's go-to information resource. Find it all on nutrient-economics.com or download the app.